question, I'm going to be talking about what I've learned from my audience feedback. We decided to ask both our primary and secondary audience to see what their opinions were of our final documentary, magazine and radio advert. We asked our primary audience, who were college students, both male and female, between the ages of 16 and 18. And we compared this to our secondary audience, who were adults, mainly like parents, between the ages of 31 and 50 years old. We asked both audiences a variety of questions to see what their responses were, and here were some of them. Do the three products link?
Yes, they do.
Yeah, straight away you've got Big Mistake featured quite largely in both products, and the key reporter is in the main picture. Yeah, I'd say clearly they both link.
Yes, they do.
What was the message of the documentary?
The prices in general are very high for students.
Healthy food being more expensive than not so healthy food.
The prices needs to come down to buy healthier food.
By asking what message they received from our documentary, this enables us to see whether or not we were successful or not as producers. This is because we decided to encode a specific message and we wanted to see if they agreed with us. This links into Stuart Hall's theory, as he says that as a producer we encode a message about what our product is about or what we want the audience to gain from it. And the audience can then decode it in 3 different ways, and they have 3 different readings. These are preferred, oppositional and negotiated. Preferred is whereby the audience agree with what our encoded message is and therefore they think it's good. And oppositional is whereby they do not agree at all with what our documentary was trying to say. Negotiated is whereby they sort of disagree but sort of agree. They're in the middle and they're not too sure whether or not they agree or disagree with our encoded message. So comparing this to our documentary, our encoded message was that prices are too high for students and that healthier food is way more expensive than the unhealthier foods. So the oppositional reading for this would be that prices aren't too high and that healthier food is cheaper than unhealthier foods. The negotiated reading would be that they sort of agree and they sort of disagree, so they sort of believe that prices are too high, but not specifically just healthy food, maybe junk food as well. And our preferred reading would be that they do agree with what our encoded message was and they do believe that healthier food is way more expensive than unhealthier food. And from this audience feedback, we can see that this was the case. So the reading that we got for our documentary, magazine and radio advert was that it was preferred. What was the purpose of the documentary?
To inform and to educate.
To inform, definitely. Entertained us by showing the picture of Nadia when she was younger and opening a bottle of Coke. So that the entertainment value was thrown in.
To inform the audience.
We decided to add a little bit of humour into our documentary, and both primary audiences and secondary audience liked this because it made the documentary more interesting and entertaining. So when we asked what the purpose of the documentary was, we did get entertained as it was quite humorous in some places. Was the presenter engaging?
Yes, very engaging. Would recommend her for BBC or ITV.
Yes, she was.
Yes, I
very
do.
much.
Both primary and secondary audiences agreed that the presenter, myself, was engaging, and this linked into Bill Nichols' theory of the 6 modes. And our documentary was participatory, where the producer is actually the presenter as well and actually participates in the documentary. So ours was a participatory documentary, and this shows that it's been successful because they did enjoy the presenter and they found her quite entertaining and good and engaging. Were the statistics that were used persuasive in any way?
Definitely.
Yes, more realistic, I say.
Yes, they were. That was quite clever actually, thinking about that now, yeah.
Yes, they have helped me gain knowledge into what I eat and what my children eat.
By sticking to the codes and conventions, we can see that our documentary was successful because by asking both primary and secondary audiences, they agreed that including a voiceover and also including statistics made our documentary seem more professional and realistic, and also engage them more. How were the sound levels on a scale of 1 to 10?
9 to 10.
I'd say 10.
9.
I'd say about 8 to 9.
From getting this information on our sound levels, we believe that it wasn't 100% and it was a bit shaky towards the end of the documentary. So next time, if I was going to produce another documentary, I'd make sure that the sound levels were perfect, as when asking our primary audience, they said towards the end the sound was too loud. So I'd make sure to fix that next time. So our final product that we made was our radio advert, and from this our audience really liked it, as they found that the music linked in from the documentary, so it linked them together, linking in with brand identity. We asked what the sound levels were to see if they were good or not for our radio advert. On average, our secondary audience believed that it was around a 9. And comparing this to our primary audience, we asked 15 people, and 7 of these people said that the documentary was a 10 for sound levels, a 10 out of 10, and 7 people said that it was a 9 out of 10, but 1 person said that it was an 8 out of 10, purely because of the end part of the documentary. Would you continue to watch the documentary?
I would, yeah.
Yes, I would.
Yes, I would.
I would too.
4 of the people that we asked from our secondary audience really enjoyed our radio advert, and we asked them whether or not they'd watch the documentary after listening to the radio advert, and all 4 of them said that they would. This shows that our product was successful because they would actually watch our final and main product, which was our documentary. What channel does the documentary appear on?
BBC One.
BBC One.
BBC One.
What magazine will the article feature in?
Radio Times.
Radio Times.
Radio Times.
Which station will our radio advert be played on?
Radio One.
Radio 1.
Radio 1.
By asking the last 3 questions of where our documentary, magazine and radio advert will feature in, it lets us know what the audience thought of it and whether or not that it is a BBC documentary. And both primary and secondary audiences knew exactly where our documentary will be in, exactly which magazine our article will feature in, and exactly which radio station that our advert would play in. I'd say that we were very successful in doing this because they knew where it was, especially for our magazine. They could see clearly that it was Radio Times. Not only was our documentary successful, but so was our magazine, as from asking both primary and secondary audiences, there was nothing really to fault. We showed the audiences a pre-existing magazine and also showed them ours, and they said that ours looked very professional and similar to a pre-existing one. This shows that we followed the codes and conventions, and it also made our magazine more professional, as the audience that we targeted really liked it. One person from our secondary audience said that they really liked the way the title was placed, as it was bold and it stood out from the rest of the page, therefore gaining their attention. So from this, I've gained that our magazine was really successful, as there was no fault at all from either audience. So this is something that we need to make sure, if we were going to do it again, we'd continue with the style that we went through. I'm really glad with the results that I received from both my primary and secondary audience, because it was what I was hoping to hear. The only thing that I'd have to improve on would be sound levels. So mainly what I've learned from my audience feedback is it helps me discover whether or not my products were successful or not, which they were. We also asked our primary and secondary audience to see whether or not they found that our documentary was professional or not. Asking our primary audience, 14 out of the 15 people that we asked believed that our documentary was very professional, and the one person who said it didn't only said this because of the sound levels towards the end. By asking our secondary audience, they believed that it was very professional and it was something that they would actually see on the BBC. One of our primary audiences actually thought that it was going to be featuring on TV, however it wasn't. Overall, I believe all 3 products were successful. This is because for our documentary we received very positive feedback. However, the only thing that we would need to improve next time was to make sure that our sound levels were okay, especially towards the end. Both audiences engaged with the archival footage we put in, especially with the McDonald's archival footage we put in, it was very relatable, as both our primary and secondary audience obviously watch TV, and it was something that they'd recognised before. Our magazine was really successful, and I'd say it's probably the most successful thing out of the 3 products that we made, because there wasn't any faults and we got very positive feedback from it. The most positive things that we found out was that the title was bold and very engaging. By having me as a presenter as the actual main image, it helped them engage more, because one person from our primary audience said that it linked well with our documentary. Our radio advert was also successful with both positive and negative points again. Again, the sound levels weren't 100%, but they did really enjoy it. They especially liked the music, so I'm glad they liked that, because it linked in with our documentary, and our documentary had that music going throughout. So if they didn't like the radio advert music, they wouldn't have liked the documentary music, but I'm glad that they did.